Welcome back to our series on the art of conflict. Today I want to dive into a few tools that can help you to keep the conflict small so that it's easier to deal with. Now, before we just jump into these tools, I want to acknowledge how difficult conflict can truly be. When you're in a moment of conflict, it can make you feel so overwhelmed, discouraged, sad, or even angry. And the truth is that even if the conflict isn't about you, it can often feel very personal. So if you're going through conflict, I just want to pause and acknowledge you and say, you're not crazy for feeling this way. But how you respond matters, because it will either set you up for success or failure depending on what you do about that conflict. So the tools I want to share over the next few sessions are tools that I use to get ahead of the conflict and take care of it before it gets too big and out of control. Now, the first tool that I want to share is called Head It Off at the Pass. Have you ever had a moment when you could feel a blow up coming? You could just feel that conflict is about to happen. Maybe you could feel the tension building in your team, or noticed some passive-aggressive behavior in Jessica, or maybe just plain old aggressive behavior in one of your teammates. This is when you want to use this tool. Here's how it works. I want you to imagine with me for a second that you live in a small western town, the kind you would see in a cowboy movie, and you're the sheriff of the town responsible for keeping the law and order. But you hear a rumor that there's an outlaw gang coming into town. What are you gonna do? This is the idea of Head It Off at the Pass. It's very similar to this situation. What are you going to do when you recognize that conflict is coming and you have to do something about it? Now, if you're the sheriff, one thing you could do is deal with the situation before it gets out of control. Imagine in this cowboy movie, the sheriff rides his horse out to the edge of town to meet the outlaws. And he says, fellas, you're welcome to come here into town as long as you lay down your guns, because we don't want any unnecessary problems here. This is the idea of Head It Off at the Pass. You want to deal with the conflict when it's small before it has the chance to turn into a serious situation that could create harm. Now let's take it back into our situation here at work. Here you are and you're wanting to use this Head It Off at the Pass tool. In order to do that, you need to pay attention to when the pressure is building. This is the moment when you notice the tension growing in your teams and you want to do something about it. So when you recognize this is when you need to start leaning in. You've got to figure out who's involved in this tension and what is the underlying tension that's growing all about. Now, in order to accomplish this, you're going to need to do some check-ins with the people involved to really discover what's going on. The goal of this discovery is to listen, ask questions, gain perspective, and ultimately to de-escalate the people who are involved while the problem is still small. Just like the sheriff who's meeting the outlaws on the edge of town, your goal is to stop the problem before it starts by dealing with it when it's small. So often this means clarifying the expectations of what you want to see in your team and de-escalating the people that are involved so that they don't immediately come in with emotional guns blazing. Some powerful de-escalation tips are to practice tools such as active listening, which is listening and giving a lot of verbal cues back and forth. You listen and you might even repeat back what you heard from them and then encouraging them into the behavior that you need them to take. This could sound like replies such as, yeah, whoa, I haven't thought of that. Huh, I could see how you feel that way. Hey, how did that make you feel? How would you like to be treated instead? If you could change this and wave a magic wand, what would you like to see different in this interaction? Or another question could be, hey, what's not happening right now that you would like to see happen? Hey, how have you tried to fix this so far? Statements and questions like these help the person feel like you really care about what they're going through. And they set the scene for you to also call them higher into being professional and into the appropriate behavior for the situation. Often it's just the step of people feeling heard and dealing with it while it's small before it gets too big that can save you a lot of heartache and frustration when it comes to conflict. So this is the power of heading it off at the pass. Your goal is to deal with issues as far in advance as you can. The moment you start to feel it, you can check in with people personally. How are you doing? What's going on? How do you feel right now? Have you tried to do anything to resolve this problem in a professional way? And then what you want to do is you want to clarify, well, here's what I believe and here's the expectation for how we can act professionally here so that it doesn't blow up into a bigger issue that ruins your day and that steals your joy.